There's a lot of things that can factor into your sight clearance in relation to the inside of your riser, and especially with a lot of the new bows that have these new inline type systems on them. There's a lot of different names for them depending on the manufacturer, but more or less it's a Picatinny type rail to where you're mounting your sights directly on the front of the riser instead of on the side of the riser. Now, depending on the type of design that you have, it could really impact how much of your scope is now getting hidden behind that riser. Now, this just has to do with the geometry of bows and how much of a cutout your particular bow has for its rest shelf right in here, and also what we refer to as the sight window, which is where this riser dog legs over. You have a sight window. So what's happened is a lot of the newer designed risers are requiring a little bit more meat in this area here. This thickness has actually been built up. Now, what happened, honestly, is one of the manufacturers had to really thicken it in this area, and then once those sights were being mounted on the outside of that thick area, the sight wasn't able to go far enough left. So honestly, I think one of the reasons why the inline system became is because it allowed the sights to have enough adjustment. However, if you come over too much, then yes, you start to see your cables, or you start to see your riser here on the inside of this sight picture, which sometimes can be a little bit annoying. Now, the other thing that can happen too is depending upon the position of your cables and how far in these cables are naturally set from your manufacturer, or if you have a flexible cable rod where these bend into that sight picture, then obviously you've got these cables crossing in front of you. Sometimes you have that inside of that riser right there, which can be problematic too. Now, what I did on the ones that I worked on, for example, this Unite bow is a perfect example. I actually built a little bit of an offset on this pick rail. So you can see my pick rail is not perfectly centered right there. It's actually shifted over so that my sight scope has a little bit better clearance and it's not being cut off by the riser. Now, if you have a perfectly centered piece, depending on the type of sight that you have, some of these sights with the pick rails have a bit of a block here on the inside so that the screw can go through something and that block might start to get in your way. These are all things that it's cause and effect. If you're seeing that, that has to do with the cause and effect of your design or your sight choice or the type of roller guard that your bow has. So when you're picking your models, make sure these are the types of things that you look for. Go into an archery range, grab a bow that's set up, take it into the range, and be able to shoot it. Make sure you're zeroed in and your sights adjusted left and right properly so that you're impacting where you need to impact. And take a look at what that sight window and that sight picture offers you based on those combinations of the riser, the bracket, the type of mount that the sight has. These are all important things to factor in. And honestly, although the idea is great, and on some setups, it's actually really nice, really clean, and works perfectly. But there's also other setups where it doesn't necessarily do that. And honestly, for me personally, you've probably noticed on a lot of my stuff, I'm still mounting my rest and my sight on the outside of my riser. Although I love the concept, and although this does have the option to have that direct mount, I actually just love the sight picture and my visual look that I'm getting with that traditional mounting system, and also the type of scope that I have. Obviously, if you have a bigger scope and you have that direct mount, you're cutting off even more of that sight picture. And sometimes depending on the type of person you are, gets a little bit too cluttered, and you're used to that really clean front sight with no obstruction. So the combination of your sight, how it mounts, and the depth of your bow model's sight window are all going to factor into that. So that's something that you should take a look at and know what you want to see before you make your next purchase, but also you might be able to make some simple adjustments, either with like offsetting that bracket, choosing a type of sight where it doesn't have as big of a block that mounts on there. Lots of different options, but that's my 2 cents on what causes the big change in your front sight picture.